Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. This is Kendall of Me Oregon Content Creation Services, and I am here again with the lovely Teri Gosselin, and we are going to, as part of the Sparkle and Shine series, and we are going to talk about the theme this month, how it relates to life and business, and just how we're living our lives these days, family, whatever comes up. And so we're going to talk about that today. The theme is for May is all around blooming and unfolding and colors and brightness. And I know Teri has got some really wonderful nuggets that she is so excited to share with us today. And I'm just really blessed to have you today, Teri. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your business, and let's talk.
Yes. Well, hi, Kendall. Thank you all so much for having me here today. It's a true honor. As Kendall mentioned, I'm Teri Gosselin, and I am an inner peace alchemist and healer. And Kendall and I met in a mutual Facebook group, gosh, last year sometime, I think. It's been a while now. And I love Facebook and like this online community and just being able to connect with just the most amazing people. So, so we've been connected, and I love your friendship. You're such a sweet, authentic, vulnerable woman, and I adore that because that is really what the kind of work that I do is all about, embracing that part of ourselves, especially after loss, and being able to take our stories and our emotions and feel through them, and then be able to reclaim ourselves at the soul level and begin that healing process, that unfolding, that blooming. I love how beautiful this month is on so many levels, both in my personal life and my business. And I think it's just, it was completely kismet to be able to talk to you this month in particular, because it's one of those months that's a little heavy for me, and I guess we'll probably get into that in a moment, but I've seen so much beauty and amazing blooming in my own personal life, and just and then also what I've been doing in business. It's been pretty amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. And yeah, we met, it was probably a year ago or somewhere around there. And I just really almost immediately just really felt connected to you, Teri, because of the way that you share. And you say, oh, I'm so, you said I was vulnerable, I present vulnerably, and you do that as well. And you do it in such a way that's very life-giving. Like, you're not like I'm going to be vulnerable and suck the life out of other people. You're all about, and I just love that. And I love, I personally love the transformative process. I always have. I generally think that, most people, if you would give me that, overarching their generalization, that most people are their best selves when they embrace the transformative process, whatever that looks like for them. And I don't know if you remember, Teri, or those of you watching may not know, I was once a social worker. I was a trained social worker and therapist. And to me, that is all about that. What is the next? What is the next? And how can I figure that out for myself, and or in that role, try to help guide somebody to figure that out for themselves. And I know, Teri, that's part of the work that you do as an inner alchemist, and the inner alchemist healer. I was like, energy? No, that's not. And how you use your own story and your own experiences to fuel that process and to provide that level of support and encouragement and vulnerability to others. So yeah, this is really good. But you did mention that you love the online space. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about your love for the online space and why or how it is that you brought your business into the online space.
Yeah, well, I've always been interested once social media hit and made it big, I guess, a number of years ago. I've always been interested. For me, and I'm dating myself here, I loved MySpace back in the day. And so I loved making my top friends and putting music on my profile and just being able to connect with people. And really during that time, I was in college, so it was a way to connect my friends to other states to school. Mm-hmm. And so then like the Facebook world came and took over, and Instagram, and I just love the ability to connect and collaborate. Actually, it's one of my top core themes in business is connection. And interestingly enough, I'm really getting into astrology and how to use that in business as well. And I'm an Aquarius sun, and that is often about friendships and connections. And so it makes total sense that this kind of online space would be a place that I would kind of just thrive and be able to cultivate those kinds of relationships and connections across the whole web. And then I love Instagram for the pieces of how like pretty it is and being able to bring that to life. And that's still a work in progress for me, just because I feel like it takes a slightly different take on like Facebook, where I spend most of my time on. But I just love the ability to be creative and be able to take a photo in really impactful words and create that authentic and vulnerable component, but also one that, like you mentioned, inspires, that gives the people the hope that although they may have gone through this or they may be going through this, that they can be able to rise above if they make the choice and start that healing process. And I think now more than ever on the online space, it's so important to be able to connect that way. I am all about promoting self-love and self-care and being able to share that both in my own life and with others, giving people hope that they can do this too. And just if it's one person takes it away and they use that in their own life, it impacts so many other people around them. Yeah. And that's really why I love being in the online space, because you can have such a massive impact at the tips of your fingers, essentially.
Yeah. I love, oh my gosh. See, you guys, I told you she was awesome. Because I want to say, like, I loved every sentence. Like,
well, thank you.
And there's so much, it's so interesting. And I love, this is another thing I love about doing these interviews and these Sparkle and Shine interviews, and kind of really getting into things with other people that I feel connected to or that I have connected with in the online space, because I find sometimes, often, there are parts of wherever each of us are that are just such parallels. Yes. Like you said, oh, I'm starting to get into astrology a little bit more and how I can infuse that in my business and make that an integrated process. And it's so funny because I'm starting to pay more attention to things like the moon cycle. Like I know, like my sun sign is Scorpio, right? Mm-hmm. So you say friendship, I'm like, yeah, well, that's like me, but the other way, like, like super deep. And that's probably, like, that's why I love you, because you're so like authentic and vulnerable, just like a Scorpio would like. So, yeah. Right. And, but yeah, it's just so funny how these like parallels start happening, and people who are connected to one another, like we start doing our own individual continuing journey, and it ends up being slightly paralleled in some way, shape, or form. And like another thing that you said, I think I just shared this on, this might have been the interview I did a couple of weeks ago, but I just shared with somebody that one of my slogans, if you would, that I used to say, or that I came up with and also said when I was like an undergrad for social work and stuff, was you change in one is changing many. Yes. You said the same thing. Like you just said, like if I affect one person with an image or some words that I shared, then that just spreads so much across the world. And see that's what I'm talking about. Like I loved every sentence. So tell us, so like you told us about your business and you know, like how you got into an online space, but tell us, and you had mentioned in your intro there, Teri, that there was some big stuff. this
Yeah.
that was really a process of unfolding and a process of blooming or reblooming or sort of lifting, you mentioned. So if you're willing, and I know things
Absolutely.
emotional, so
Yeah.
do it as you see fit. But I would love for you to share with people how it is, even if you don't share specific examples, but how it is that you infuse some of this personal stuff into being an inner peace alchemist. Share with us, how do you make that happen?
Yeah. So actually, this whole business happened because of what happened in my own personal life. I just didn't know it at that time. So literally this past week was the 11-year, I don't like anniversary either, but the passing date of my brother. My brother passed away in May 2008, 3 weeks before my wedding day, completely sudden. It was a complete and utter shock, tragedy, a lot of emotions at that time. And with that came a lot of obvious grief. As someone who hadn't lost anyone really prior to that, because I had all my grandparents and extended family, losing your 22-year-old brother suddenly was something that I'd never imagined was even possible. And so, and then let alone 3 weeks before getting married when you're on the complete other spectrum of emotions. So that couple of years was one that was really difficult as I was trying to navigate the waters of grief and the ebbs and flows. Also, whilst newly married and starting a family and then having additional losses on top of that, it became very complicated. And as someone who is normally a planner and someone who is trying to, go and continue to do things, I didn't want to let my emotions get in the way. And so I stuck them down. And I'd been to some grief counseling. I went to some therapy off and on, but I had postpartum depression, and things started becoming really challenging where I began noticing I was becoming bitter. And I was becoming a shell of a person. So I've lost who I was. In addition to losing my brother and then, additional family members, I lost who I was. And then I lost the idea, what am I supposed to be doing in this big, wide world? Now I feel like I'm just a label of a wife, someone who does this in my, work, my day-to-day work. And then I'm a mom and I'm all these labels, but who is Teri? And, and I've had a bachelor's degree, I have a master's degree, and I had a, career. And it was just I don't know, I just literally lost everything within. And so then I had started really doing some additional therapy work. And then I had a health scare. It's been 3 years now. And it was a major wake-up call. And it was actually interesting. I was reflecting on this. I was having some shoulder trouble 3 years ago. So I went to go get a CT scan. And on the CT scan, it pulled up these nodules on my thyroid that I never knew about. And I had to do biopsies, and they were all coming back inconclusive. And so it was decided that, I got the option, and I opted to have them removed because I didn't know if it was cancer or not. And with 2 little kids and being, in my mid-30s, I was like, no. And once I got the results back that it was not cancer, very grateful for that, of course.
Yes.
It was a huge wake-up call to, you've got to live your life now. And I knew my brother would not have wanted me to be, in this state of not living and not embracing, because he lived his life and he was larger than life, literally and figuratively. And I'd been getting signs. I am very spiritual, and I started walking on that spiritual journey a little bit deeper then. But I had seen a medium, and my brother had come through, and it was the most amazing session. My sister and my mom were there, and they were kind of skeptical. And when he came through and the things that were being said, it was incredible. And one of the signs from him for my sister and I is a dragonfly. And right before I had my surgery in 2016, I saw nonstop dragonflies. And so I knew that this was part of like figuring out the next level. Yeah. And so the last couple of years has been this journey of embracing spirituality, kind of diving in deeper into my own self, kind of personal work, trying to understand my intuition, trusting it. That's been a big one. And with that, also kind of looking in and doing some deeper healing, like things I didn't even realize needed uncovering, but because I've stuffed them down for so many years, it was a lot of unfolding. But with the unfolding comes this amazing blossoming of new life, right? Yeah. Like a new outlook, a fresh perspective. And then also this business, I realized that the experience I went through, the pain I went through, was the very purpose I didn't even know I was seeking. And I never would say that losing my anything to have him back, anything. But I also know he's with me every step of this way and has been guiding me to get to this point of being able to help people on their healing journey, because now, although we're always healing and it's never a done process, I'm in a place where I've done so much inner work and so much healing that I see the joy in life and I see the gratitude. And, sitting out in nature is one of my most favorite things to do. I love it. I love sitting out there and and it's so funny because I as someone, who's was always doing. Now the art of being is one of my favorite things. So sitting in nature and literally watching like dragonflies or butterflies and birds and just watching like the breeze. I'm watching it right now through my window, watching the breeze in the trees and just like soaking it in. It is like cathartic for the soul, but it also gets you back to remembering who you are. And that right here, right now, in this very moment, we always have this choice. And the choice that I choose is to live my life and allow the blooming and the blossoming of life to happen and to embrace it and enjoy it. I think a lot of times we take it for granted when we're in this day-to-day, or if we're so locked in our emotions, we forget to even observe it. So now it's just the art of being present. Is absolutely beautiful. And I think this month has been really interesting. In my Facebook group, Kendall's actually been a part of it. I decided to do this live journaling challenge. Really for me, to be able to get even more vulnerable. I had this download from, God, source, whatever, universe, whatever you believe in. And I had this download to do this. And I'm like, this is crazy because I don't mind going live, but as someone, I'm technically an introvert. You may not think that by talking here. But, going live like every single day is not easy for me. Yeah. It's a lot. It takes a lot of energy. And so some of my lives have been short and I didn't go live every single day. I've missed 3 days this month, but I am still pretty proud of myself because it's been this opportunity to really share more vulnerably about what I'm going through this month, each day. And how I'm feeling. Also, nuggets of wisdom have come through each day. Some days I'm like, well, where's this coming from? It's really amazing, but it's also giving me that opportunity to bloom into myself even more fully, to really step into this next level of who I am, and to be able to embrace it. So it's been an amazing month that's been full of like enlightenment and depth and sadness, but also joy. Yeah. And it's been really, really beautiful.
Yeah, okay, that live journal thing that has been going on in your group is amazing. Thank you. Okay, full disclosure, everybody. Yes, I have joined in And I've only gone in a couple of times, and it's not because I don't want to go live. For me, it's like carving out the space without like children running all over me. And because Teri, you probably have noticed, like when I did go live a couple of times, it was like 11, 12 o'clock.
Yes, I did notice.
I wanted to go live for like hours and hours, but it's like, I gotta do this without the kids like screaming, because as you mentioned, Teri, like the challenge isn't just go live. The challenge is go live and let's live journal. Let's journal. Let's talk about life. Let's talk about where we are. Let's talk about what we're experiencing, what we're learning, what we're seeking, whatever it is, whatever's coming up or releasing, whatever is happening. And so I don't know if you know this either, because I think I get it. Probably because I'm like that, but I've always gotten the sense that you really are like this introvert, and because I am, and most people have always been surprised by that. They're like, "Oh, but you're always like bubbly." No, you don't understand. Like, there's a reason that, like, when I used to work in an office and everything, there's a reason when I leave, you guys don't hear from me until like the next morning or Monday. Like, what'd you do this weekend? Read books, took a nap, like slept half the weekend. You didn't do anything? No, that was fun. Trust me. It was really, did you want me to come in and perform again?
Yes. Yes.
So, and I'm totally like that type A. I'm a recovering type A. I always
same.
So it's funny when you said that, but back to this like live journal and like what comes out of that and how amazing it has been. And I have seen almost all of yours, and it's like I can sense it just as a viewer, like this is good stuff for her, for you. And so to hear you in today's talk, in today's interview, to say like, oh, I did this really challenging, bold thing, and it has been amazing. Use the word amazing.
Yeah.
And so Teri might use the word amazing a lot. I tend to use it a lot. But about certain things, it has like more weight, right? So when you talk about live journaling and you're like, I'm going to get on and tell everybody, like, I'm going to share my whole heart with people, not to talk about business, not to talk about the latest promotion or the latest, political issue, like not to, but to like, I'm going to share about my heart, my real heart.
Yep.
My heart that makes me cry, or my heart that makes me happy, or my heart that makes me cry and be joyous in the same moment. Or my heart that is grieving so deeply, but there's light within the grief. And it's not light at the end of the tunnel light. It's literally like, my imagery is that it seeps through the cracks of the grief.
I love it. Yes.
And because I totally know where you're coming from, because there has been a rocky road that I have traveled the last 7 years. And as a mom, as a wife, as a daughter, many of you who are watching may not know, I lost my dad 3 years ago. And it's really heavy. And I didn't deal with it because, you know what, type A, I got all these kids. I have a husband. I have a house to run. I have, different things I've done, work or whatever the case may be. And dealing with the fact, like the logistical, legal stuff of my dad passing, I did nothing for 2 years. And it wasn't until sometime last year, which is so amazing when you say, oh, I had a health scare 3 years ago. I don't think I knew that about you, that you had this major health scare and how it sort of kicked you in a way, that experience kind of kicked you to like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Wait, look, Teri, open your eyes and look. And my dad's death sent me back inside more than I already had been for other reasons. And then we had a pregnancy loss 2 years ago. And that pregnancy loss is kind of what kicked me back into, like, you always, if you're intuitive, even a little bit, like even just personally intuitive, I always knew I'm stuffing, I'm hiding,
Yeah.
I'm angry, I'm lashing, I'm empty, I'm broken. Like, I knew it. And yes, I can go to therapy, and yes, I can go do this, and I can go do this, and I can show up, and I can do this, but and nobody's taking care of me, and nobody's hearing me say, I need you to take care of me, because I'm screaming it instead of saying, listen, I need you to give me a hug, which is so different than, why can't you just help me?
Yeah.
Right? So I totally understand. And yeah, and May is a really important month for me as well. I don't know. I might have been I probably was in the challenge in your group, where I had this sort of epiphany or realization that May, for the last like 10 or 15 years, has been this, like, all these things have happened. It's either been really good stuff that's happened in or around or right before, or tough stuff.
Yeah.
My dad passed in February. I was inundated with traveling to where he lived, because we don't live in the same town, and it's a couple hours away, and doing that plus working plus caring for kids, like doing all this stuff. And when my dad passed, our middle son was 3 months old. So I'm also in postpartum, and all this stuff.
All the emotions and range of hormones.
It was May. I was in the backyard, and I had been like being in the dark, because I still had this idea that I was still going to be able to make the garden happen, which, by the way, 3 years later still hasn't happened. I was in there, and I was in there, and I was, and I don't know if it was that day or another day, but it was all in the same time period. And I came in, and I was like chopping vegetables for dinner one day, and I knew a shift just happened.
Amazing.
That whole, like, I couldn't pinpoint it necessarily, and it wasn't, oh, the grief has lifted. Like, it wasn't that. It was just a different piece of the grief.
Mm-hmm.
So new, away from just sad.
Yes.
And just in pain, and just hurting, and just like not knowing what to do and who to reach out to. And because my dad, for me, in some ways, may have been like your brother to you.
Sure.
And I have sisters, so I'm not gonna say, like, if something happened to them that I wouldn't go back. But my dad was kind of like my rock in a lot of ways.
Totally.
And yeah, so I totally get it. And I think that's why the theme for this month, when I thought about this series and creating it, and like interviewing other people, other wonderful people, women in the space of the online world, it was like, May is blooming and unfolding. And I didn't know why I felt that way until it's like you always have little pieces. Like you said, there's all these little slivers, and you sit in and you just watch the breeze, and it's like, oh,
It is. It's amazing the way, the things that, even subconsciously, what we are, like, this is what you thought for May. And it makes so much sense, even, given the season as well. But just it's so interesting. I often use, hi.
Hi.
Hi. Oh my gosh, they're so cute.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Close the door back, please.
I often use, like, the descriptions of when you're doing the healing process, especially like the deep inner work, that it often, there's like this digging, and then watching it, bloom, and the unfolding, and like the petals, and like it just all like aligns so perfectly. So it's interesting that I also visualize a lot of you, and like what you visualize for May. It also feels very much for me what I've have visualized as well for the healing process in my own life, and what I watch my clients undergo. So it's really powerful when you get to the point where you can see that light seeping through the heart, like the visualization you gave there as well. Because then, you know, it's like different glasses that you're wearing all of a sudden, and you are able to observe different things, and you have this awareness about yourself too and what you're going through. So like, for example, this week was a very difficult week for me because it's the anniversary, and I'll mention, so the reason, I think part of the reason why I wanted to do this live journaling was because in the past, the anticipation of the day would eat me alive. And I would be constantly on edge, have anxiety, would cry at the drop of the hat, just anticipating the exact day. Because what happens on the day usually is that my mind starts playing the story, right? And that's what it is. That was that day kind of frozen in time for me. But this time, by doing the live journaling and where I am now in my healing journey, even from a year ago, I noticed that I didn't have the same anticipation or the same anxiety, but it was amazing. But the day of, I actually felt very deep pain, pain I hadn't felt in a really long time. And so I was thinking about this, and I felt very antisocial, and I didn't feel like engaging with anyone. I mean, I spent time with my mom and dad in the morning, which we usually do. We go to church and we go to breakfast and we do our own thing. And so what I filled my day up with while my kids were in school was walking around Target and TJ Maxx and going to get a pedicure and a manicure and reading a book that I wanted to read, just allowing myself things that kind of filled me back up a little bit while I was trying to like understand this pain. But what I took away from this later that evening was I don't need to understand it. It just is. And that at the end of the day, I needed to give myself space. So I actually ended up not going live. And I was beating myself up a couple of times that day. I'm like, you need to go live. You made this commitment to yourself and to your community. And what does this say about your integrity? And then I was like, why am I saying this is an integrity issue? Actually, I'm showing up and being completely showing my integrity to myself and to my community, that it is okay to choose yourself.
Yes.
To take that space and give yourself what you need. And right now, if you don't need to go live because you don't feel like it, then that's what you need. And so it was just amazing, like, the awareness now that you have around like actions and things. So I took that away. And then what I actually, the next day, was still kind of in a low point in the morning. But I took away that, you know what, I needed to go through that deeper pain again because I didn't go through it, like I didn't process it the way that I should have. And so, I didn't have the anxiety leading up to it, but I had to feel this pain again. And I didn't cry. I didn't cry until the next day, which is, grief is not linear. Yeah. And so it's just been interesting. Like, and then today I'm feeling amazing. In fact, I just was telling Kendall, I cut my hair 4 inches today. I feel like I've just taken off emotional weight, and this is the continued unfolding into my next level. And so it's really, really a radical kind of experience. Yeah. And just, again, like, you just put on new glasses and see everything so much differently.
And I love the new glasses. I love that imagery. I love it for a couple of reasons. And I'll say this very, very quickly and very briefly. So many years ago, I battled significantly with major depression. And I went through different things anyway. I'm successfully haven't had that type of major depression in over 10 years. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
And part of that, for me anyway, in my journey, is all like emotional stuff. It's that stuffing and that hiding and that I've got to achieve and I've got to this and I've got to put the face on and I've got to show up and I have to go live even when I really, really cannot go live right now because it will be ugly.
Yeah.
Not crying ugly, but just yucky, ugly.
Yeah.
And but going through different things so that I could heal that depression way back then. But anyway, so the thing is, the glasses thing, it's like a switch. It's like glasses. When we had our first son, I was nervous and afraid before birth that I might have terrible postpartum because I have this old history of depression. And for some people that can, increase the susceptibility. I did have postpartum, and but I denied it because I was like, well, this can't be postpartum because it's not as bad as the depression that I once felt, all these years before I ever had my son. And so it was untreated, but I remember very distinctly, and my husband will tell you, about 6 to 8 months later, I literally saw different, like literally. And I remember reading research many, many years ago, like when I was going through for social work and therapy and all that, that some people's experience of depression, even anxiety and different things like that, that when they are properly treated and they're able to move through that, not just hide it with medication, which is necessary for some people, but for some people, it just masks it. And we won't go there. But that for some people, they claim that they can see colors differently. And so when that postpartum started to really lift, I remembered that research and was like, that makes sense. Yeah. And so when you say, it's like I can see different, I know what you mean. And that's like an obvious example. But like in the last year, like I I can see differently today than I saw last year. And this time last year versus the year before, I didn't even remember what happened the year before. Yeah. And it's that glasses kind of idea, yes, that imagery. And I love that. And if you will, I'd like to ask this question, and please understand you do not have to answer it because I know what it can feel like to answer this kind of question.
Okay.
When you experienced the date of your brother's passing 11 years ago this past week, and you said you felt so much pain.
Yes.
Did it feel physical to you? My experience is that it's physical. So
it was physical. It was very physical. It was like I could literally, it's like I felt my soul and my heart, and it was in the depths of it. And it was like this, I don't know how, it was just like these heavy weights pulling it down. And it's interesting because I've had a couple of experiences, not quite as painful as this, but I've had some experiences of losses over the last couple of years, family members and friends and neighbors and people that have made an impact on my life. And each time there's been something new that's unfolded from like the different grieving points of things I hadn't resolved. And so this was very much a newer kind of effect. And it was interesting because in the past, I feel that this weight of this pain could have led me back to, I also had depression and anxiety, and would have led me back into that space. And I would say a couple of years ago, I thought that was going to happen when a neighbor when I went to school with had passed away from cancer. And I saw it go into that space. And then interestingly enough, this was my pain. This particular situation this week was my pain to feel, but I all of a sudden was like, this is not my grief to feel. Like I can be sad, but what I'm holding on to was not mine in this. I was holding on because there were some triggers. And I don't love that word, but there were triggers from that loss because her sister was getting married 2 weeks later. And so it was like mirroring my life from what I remembered. So for me, it was like a punch in the gut of remembering of the most painful time of my life. And so this pain was my pain to feel this week because it was some unresolved, unprocessed grief. And it was just what I took from it because that I needed to allow it. Mm-hmm. I needed to let it go through. Mm-hmm. And it's not fun when it's heavy, of course. But as I allowed it, that night, my older son had baseball practice, and my husband's been out of town, so I had to take them. And I just sat there, and then my little one was able to go and practice with them, and I just watched them in their joy. The joy that they were in their favorite sport, and it was a beautiful evening, and it was like, and this is exactly where my brother would be, because baseball was his favorite sport too. Okay. So it was like one of those situations where it's like, okay, it's heavy, and I don't need to feel guilty about what I choose and don't choose to do today. I don't need to feel guilty that I feel like this, but I don't need to feel guilty that I also feel joy today either. Mm-hmm. And this has been a constant kind of struggle, is this guilt factor. And I think a lot of people who wrestle with unprocessed grief, related traumas, and so forth, often have this kind of, they want to release it, and they say they do, but then they don't really. Mm-hmm. So it was an interesting.
Releasing it is scary.
It is, because if you've been holding on to it, it's safe. You know it. You know what that feels like, and it doesn't feel great, and you're walking around all the time like that. But it's part of you. Mm-hmm. And the same with unprocessed grief. I think for a lot of the time, there was a reason why I didn't want to fully grieve, because I thought I'd forget my brother. Yeah. I thought if I fully felt everything and then really experienced pure joy all of the time, that this would be not, being able to honor his memory. Yeah. And, it's still been something I work through, but it's also one of those things that I know 100% my brother would never want anyone to live their life in that kind of complex, but everybody's different and people handle things differently. And when you have a complicated situation and complexities of highs and lows of emotions at the same time over an extended period of time in different parts of your life, like really major life-changing events. And I've had this happened several years in a row for me. Yeah. That it's one of those things that if you just keep going, like you don't have a choice to keep going, and it's easier to feel and keep that pain a part of you, because then you're not forgetting that person's memory. Yeah. Until it's time to make the choice to not forget their memory, but to know that you have a life to live too, and an impact in this world, and that you're here for a reason, and to take that opportunity to use that very reason to live. Yeah. Fully live.
Yeah, and it's so powerful I love the way you said that just now, because that is, personally, in my previous profession, I've seen that so many times. I've heard it in different ways so many times, and it's just so powerful to step into allowing oneself to even just put your toe to that line and to feel that little bit of pain, because it might take years, and because some people need to unlayer very slowly. Some people can layer, like you may release layers, this one's a deep layer, this one's a small layer, and these are all parts of grief and trauma and heartache and all these emotions, including happiness and joy. Yeah. I don't know about you, but sometimes I realize that, and I learned this many years ago, but as I continue to go through what my life journey is, I see it over and over. I actually sometimes need to release the joy and the happiness. Yep. Because if I stay in the joy and happiness, I become fake. Yes. I become surface. And so I'm not the opposite. It would seem like, oh, well, you're just the opposite of being depressed. No, actually, I'm depressed and just don't see it. Mm-hmm. Or something along those lines. Anxiety is the same way, or, and it's just, I love the way that it's just so powerful. You have to make that choice. Yeah. And like I said, sometimes that choice is really small. And sometimes the choice is in stages, and maybe it's successive stages. Yes. Right?
Absolutely.
There's something, I realized a few weeks ago and like journaled about it and different stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, okay, fine. And then I went on life and, days later, a week later, whatever, it came up again, but in a different way.
Yep.
And it wasn't about anxiety. It was like, but you also need to realize this. Oh, now that makes sense. Now I know why it came up weeks ago, because I needed to get to this next piece of it. And then the next piece of it, and the next piece of it, and the next piece of it. And so, like you said, sometimes we don't need to know or figure out. We just need to let it be, which is
exactly
what I said earlier. Just let it be. Let's just be. Let's just live. Not like, oh, I'm going to let my neighbor run through my yard and like throw trash on it. No. I'm going to let my neighbor walk down the street and carry their trash and not bother them.
Exactly.
Right? And I'm not going to go, I'm going to show them that same level of respect. Sometimes I use that type of example talking about boundaries, but it is true. That's life. And that's that transformative process, that blooming, that unfolding, that color. And we've talked about glasses. And about light. And there's the color right there.
I know.
I just realized that. But see, I love you, Teri.
I love you too. This has been an awesome conversation.
I just like, anyway, so where was it? I was going to say something, and then I just was filled with like, oh my gosh, I just love this. I love the opportunity that I have to interview people, to meet people, to interview people, to help them to share their story and their business and their life and their viewpoint and their perspective, and just to show also the similarities, because at the end of the day, we're all pretty similar. So you and I may share, and it obviously came out in this conversation, we may share some general qualities of personality and maybe even of life in many ways. But I've interviewed people who we only share that heart space kind of personality.
Yeah.
And those have been wonderful conversations and interviews as well. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I just feel so privileged to be able to do this. And I feel so privileged to know people and to meet people and to help people to share.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful experience. So thank you so much too. It's really nice to be able to have a conversation. It just feels like you're hanging out with your friend over coffee.
Yeah.
So.
Or water.
Well, I have coffee.
Coffee today. Okay. But I left my coffee in the kitchen. So I had to settle with water. But okay. So So we're gonna start to wrap up a little bit, because we could probably talk for like 3 more hours.
Pretty sure we could.
And transformation and being and living and loving and joy, and like we could probably talk for 3 more hours. But obviously, some people are impatient. And although we love our viewers and we love our audience and we love the ability to reach, we also understand that you guys have lives too.
Yes.
So we're going to do this really quick. So I have Starlight Round questions. So there's 3 questions that I'd love for you to answer if you're willing.
Yes, of course.
I consider them to be pretty basic, simple questions, but they have like deeper things in them. Oh. So the only caveat is if you choose to answer the questions that you answer the first thing that comes up and you don't filter.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I knew you could do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Here we go. Let's see. Where are my questions? All right. Because I always ask them in different order, so I have to see them. Okay. I feel like you said this one, but we're going to talk about it anyways. Tell me what your biggest life challenge or business challenge is right now.
Right now.
How you'd like to see that changed, and how we can help you.
Okay. My biggest challenge right now, Oh my gosh, this is hard because I feel like one of them was really like what I've been doing with my live challenge, was to be able to go live and like commit to this even deeper vulnerable share. But I feel like this is just actually the surface. I feel like they could go deeper. So maybe what's in there is in fact that I don't even know what it even looks like. But I've really enjoyed this process. So I feel like the challenge is to understand what the next step is for this, how much deeper to go.
Wow.
And if anyone has ideas, I welcome them.
Yeah, go watch the video so you can understand.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so how can we support you other than going to watch the videos? You got to tell us what group it is, though. I know the group, but you got to tell everybody else what the group is so they can find it, and then we'll put the links and stuff, of course. But
yes,
where we're going to find this so that we can help support you in this live journal process.
All of the videos can be found in my group, which is the Authentic Strength Warriors. And it's a beautiful, beautiful community of just amazing women who they hold space for you the way that I hold space for everyone else. They do the same, and everyone's just kind and compassionate and allow people to be their true selves without judgment. And so that's where you can find the videos. Actually, I do know what the next step is. And I think what I need help with is actually bringing these beyond my safety and comfort zone of my group into my personal page. And this is something I've toyed with, but it terrifies me, you guys. So if anyone has any suggestions or ideas, I welcome them.
Okay, Teri, I'm just going to personal plug here. You know I do content creation. There's a way we can make this happen. Maybe we need to talk.
We probably do. That just came to me as we were talking. And so obviously there was a reason I needed to say that.
There you go. See, these really easy questions are a lot deeper.
They are.
All right. Yeah. So, okay. That's awesome. I love that. I didn't know what you would answer. I never know what people are going to answer, but I wasn't able through our conversation when I thought about, I don't know how she would answer that. I love that it's like, I put this little challenge. Oh, but wait a second. The challenge is not the challenge. The challenge is to step again.
Yeah. This was like the first step. Now what's the next step? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay. Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay. So, but we're going to talk.
Yes, we need to.
If this is your next step and this is what needs to happen for your life and for your business and for your own growth and for your ability to heal more people or help people learn.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Then we need to talk. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
On a wider scale. Yes. Yeah. Take me there, Kendall.
So next would be, I'll step back just a little bit. Tell me what your biggest personal change in building your business has been.
Oh, I think it's just accepting that, it's twofold. Accepting that it doesn't need to be perfect, that being able to step forward with ideas and putting them out there, and maybe not everyone embraces them, and just allowing that process because it is part of the journey. But I think other parts of it are of this comparison thing. Like, this has been a challenge I had to overcome initially. I would look through and compare because, some people are making like $20,000 immediately, and some people are using this to reach their audience, and some people are doing, such and such. And it's like, you have to look beyond what other people, just be happy for them and where they are, but know that your journey is different than theirs. And that actually, and this goes back to my Aquarius self, I'm someone who likes to think outside of the box and be my own trailblazer. So these other like cookie cutter kinds of ways to do things, and I've tried them. I will tell you that. I've tried them because I didn't know what to do. I thought business had to be hard.
Yeah.
So I've tried them to do the different things because I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is going to get me this, and this is going to get me to be able to reach people quicker, and this is how I can, be able to move to the next step faster. And really, that's not what it's about at all. And so my own personal self, I really in addition to all of my own inner healing work, I've also really truly been working on embracing the actual business journey in the creation parts and looking at the beauty of that process, and allowing myself to share like what comes forward and without expectation, but simply because it's something that excites me or lights me up, and that knowing that that's enough.
Yeah.
You know, that's really truly enough, and that you can connect with people just by being yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And can I just ask you, I'm gonna take all the things that you just said in answer to that question about the biggest personal change in building your business.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna narrow that down to one phrase. You cannot be in business and be a type A.
Yes, you have to release a lot of that. The people pleasing, the perfectionism, all of that.
Because what you said was, oh, I did try this and I tried this and all these cookie cutter formulas and this, I did this because this is going to go here. That's so type A. It's like, what are the rules? Give me the rules.
Yes, just give me my outline of my to-do list and I'll do it. Yeah, doesn't work.
I'll do what I need to do within, but just, what's the outline? What are the parameters? And if I know the parameters, I can fill in the rest. Like, it's like being in school or college. You said you have a master's degree as well, so I know you know this. Like, you have a discussion class, which is awesome, but your discussion class is based off of an article. Okay, go read this article or this book or whatever. Come back to class, we'll discuss it for the next 2 weeks or whatever it is, right? Yeah. And okay, all right, I can do that. The rule is learn this, say what I want. Okay, but business doesn't work like that.
No. Well, and you know what's so amazing is that in thinking a little bit more about this, about that business journey, it's also just like your own healing journey or a grief journey. Yep. There's no list that you can just go from and go from point A to point Z and be healed. Yeah. Like, it's always one that's not linear, it ebbs and flows, and it's truly life journey, and like just being able to embrace it wherever you are, and just know that life is truly what you make it. Yeah. In business too.
Yeah. So let me guess, Teri. I realize I'm prolonging this, but let me guess. Are you on step Y? I'm teasing. But what step were you on yesterday? Was it A?
Yeah, it's a good question. I have no idea. And you know what's so funny is that it's actually been one of those experiences, I think even more recently, and I think this live journaling has helped with that, is that you really can't predict what the steps are going to look like. Yeah. And so, like probably today I'm much further along in the alphabet than I was yesterday. And then like 2 days ago, I was just like in the negative. So it's fine.
You didn't even know what the letters were.
No, I couldn't even say the letters. I didn't want to be a letter. I was just,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I totally get that because obviously I'm in business too. So there you go. Okay. Last question. Mm-hmm. This is the biggest question. Those two are big. This one is super big.
Bracing myself.
This is where you're really vulnerable and you cannot, I'm telling you, Teri, don't filter because I'll know it. I'll know when you're filtering and I will stop you. Here we go. Share your biggest dream goal for this year.
Oh my gosh. For this year. I think I have.
Or whatever.
Okay. Well, I have a lot of goals. I have a lot, and they're all dreamy and amazing. So I have a few. So I think I would really like to have like a retreat / healing circle of a small one with women that is amazing. I also want to get on stage and share my story to a wider audience. I would like to write a book. I have one in me. It just hasn't come out yet on paper. Gosh, I have actually, like, all of a sudden, I actually felt like I'm becoming an even bigger brand in my mind, or like further out. So including like physical products to help people on their healing journey and being able to create from this space of pure love to give to people. And that then includes, even larger stages and venues and retreats and these, in addition to the coaching piece. I mean, right now, it's limitless, I feel like. And I think it'll continue to expand because I'm continuing to step each day and look at life in a more expansive viewpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you know what? You take things out of your little safe group, which is awesome and lovely, and you put them on your personal page and you start making those dreams a reality. But you already know that. I'm not telling you something.
I know. I've heard YouTube was, somebody mentioned YouTube to me too recently. So
yeah.
I have to branch out. I know.
On YouTube. These videos go on YouTube. I don't know if you'll know that, but all of the Sparkle and Shines go on YouTube. So we're going to build. We're going to build. Yes. We're going to see you blossom more, and we're going to see you grow more, and we're going to see you just light up and share more love and color and courage and bravery and strength and joy and grief and transformation. We're going to see you do more of that.
Yes.
And I have to tell you that I'm so pleased, and I'm so honored, and I'm so blessed, if you would, to have met you in the online space and to be able to share you and watch you grow or share with you and watch you grow and watch you do what you do with others. I just love that. And so thank you. And thank you for being part of this. This is just so fun.
Thank you so much. Those words mean so very much. And I'm so grateful to have met you too. I think, you meet a ton of people in the online space and you can cultivate relationships, but not every relationship has the same level of this deeper kind of feeling. So I'm grateful for you because I do feel connected to you in that way, that we can have these deep conversations and laugh at the same time, but also cry if we need to. And that is just really a powerful relationship.
Okay.
So thank you.
No more thank yous, because I really will cry. So,
I know, me too.
I was really about to cry. Okay. So, see, I was about to cry. So I just have to can I see you again? I need to be able to see again. All right. So before we go, though, we want to make sure that people can find you. I know we mentioned your group before, but let's mention your group. I know you're on Instagram and you share those beautiful images with hope and inspiration and empowerment and healing. So share where we can find you. Tell us how we can connect with you. And of course, everybody just remember, like always, the links will be in the comments. And so you'll be able to easily go check out Teri. I highly suggest people go check out the group. Please go check out the Authentic Strength group. It's really awesome. You'll connect with Teri more. You'll get to know so much about her. You'll get to know so much about a lot of people. And this space is, for it to be a non-physical online space, the space is just so fresh.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, anyway, share your channels and so we can find you, and then we are going to let all of our viewers go because we have kept them for a very long time.
Yes. Well, thank you again, Kendall. I really appreciate it. You can find me over in the Authentic Strength Warriors group. It is a closed group, but all are welcome to join. I'm on Instagram at Teri Gosselin Coaching, and then also on my regular Facebook page, it's also Teri Gosselin Coaching, and then my personal page is Teri Gosselin. So feel free to connect with me. A website coming, YouTube videos coming, all of it coming. Brands getting ready to explode.
Yeah, awesome. That is so great. Okay, we will drop those comments. We will drop those links in the comments below. If you've got questions, if you want to know more about what Teri does or how you can work with her, then please leave a comment, go to one of her channels and connect with her. Just go say hi and even just do like a coffee chat with her. Like seriously, do a connection call with her. She's awesome. And
I love that. I love making new friends. So.
Yeah, that just reminded me of, I think, our first connection call, Teri, all of that time ago. And I don't know if you remember, the sunlight was coming in and it like blinded.
Yes.
It, like, was blinding me, but like you could see me. And I was like, I can't, what's happening? And anyway, but you gotta get on a connection call, Teri. So anyways,
it was so pretty too.
Yeah, right. Leave the comments, leave the questions. We will be sure to answer them. We will be sure to address you guys. Send a personal DM if you need. Like if you really need to talk about something,
please
reach Teri. Everybody, you know what I do, content creation, make a video, write your content. I'll mix it up and give you new content, lickety split. So let's all have a great, wonderful rest of the day. Teri, thank you again. Thank you so much. I love our conversation.
I loved it too. Thank you again, Kendall.